Hello and welcome to this final first look exploring session looking at The Fawn by John Marston. We've gone a little way into Act 4. We're going to complete the play today, and we're going to find out how it all resolves itself, and so that we can finally make some active choices about how to pitch this play, what to do with this play, where this play is going, what it is trying to do. It's always difficult to make a final assessment until you actually get to the end and you find out what is actually going to happen to the people of slightly questionable views. So to find out and to close the journey on this first look, reading today Hercules, the Disguised Fawn, and Epilogue is...
Hello, my name's Lynn Freitas. I am, my clever disguise is a college writing teacher living in the northwestern United States.
Who would have thought? Who would have thought? Reading the other Duke, Gonzago is...
Briony, Sparrow, I have no disguise.
The only disguise is disguising the English language so that no one knows what you mean. Reading Herod is...
Lalitte, I'm a teacher in Paris.
Reading Zuccone and Dondolo is...
Hi, I'm Eric, and I don't have a disguise, but I moonlight as Vampire Cupid.
Indeed, don't we all at times? Reading Dulcimel, Garbetza, and a perfectly straightforward Cupid, probably, is...
Rachael, Nicole, regular Cupid.
Reading Nymphadoro and Amoroso is...
Hello, I'm Helen Good, and my disguise is a historian.
Reading Zoya, Tiberio, and Poveia is...
Hi, I'm Alan, I'm based in Suffolk, and disguise confused.
And I'm your host, Robert Crighton, and I'm sneezing. And I will be playing Granuffo, who has so far said huge things, if only by his presence. So I say we're diving into midway into Act 4. We're going to continue till the end and find out how it all hangs or doesn't hang together. We've just had a scene where Dondolo has come in and sort of given us an idea of where the play is going. There's been a lengthy sequence about the Ship of Fools. We're not quite sure how literal that is, whether it's a bee-arc full of telephone sanitizers or whether it's just something more metaphorical. But also we've been told that there's a mask coming up. But before all of that excitement can occur, various exits occur from that scene, apart from, I think... Hercules, slightly difficult to tell, but enter now Zuccone, pursued by Zoya, on her knees, attended by ladies.
I will have no mercy. I will not relent. Justice's beard is shaven, and it shall give thee no hold. I am separated and will be separated.
Dear my lord, husband!
Hence, creature, I am none of thy husband or father of thy bastard. No, I will be tyrannous and the most deep revenger. The order shall stand. Ha, thou quean, I had no wife now.
Sweet
Hence,
my lord!
avaunt! I will marry a woman with no womb, a creature with two noses, a wench with no hair, rather than remarry thee. Nay, I will first marry. Mark me, I will first marry. Observe me, I will rather marry a woman that with thirst drinks the blood of man. Nay, heed me, a woman that will thrust in crowds, a lady that being with child ventures the hope of her womb. Nay, gives 2 crowns for a room to behold a goodly man 3 parts alive, quartered, his privities hackled off, his belly lanched up. Nay, I'll rather marry a woman to whom these smoking, hideous, bloodful, horrid, though most just spectacles are very lust, rather than re-accept thee. Was I not a handsome fellow, from my foot to my feather? Had I not wit? Nay, which is more, was I not a don, and didst thou act on me? Did I not make thee a lady?
And did she not make you a more worshipful thing, a cuckold?
I married thee in the hope of children.
And she has showed herself fruitful that got with child without the help of her husband.
Thou ungrateful, immodest, unwise, and one that God's my witness I had loved. But go thy ways, twist with whom thou wilt. For my part, thou spun a fair thread. Who'll kiss thee now? Who'll court thee now? Who'll have thee now?
Is he the frailty of my sex, sweet lord?
No, pity is a fool, and I will not wear his coxcomb. I have vowed to loathe thee. The Irishman shall hate aquavite, that Welshman cheese, the Dutchman shall loathe salt butter before I relove thee. Does the babe pule? Thou shouldst have cried before, 'tis too late now. No, the trees in autumn shall sooner call back the spring with the shedding of their leaves than thou reverse my just, irrevocable hatred with thy tears. Away! Go! Vaunt!
And exit Zoya and the ladies.
Nay, but most of this is your fault, that for many years upon mere mistrust severed your body from your lady, and in that time gave opportunity, turned a jealous ass, and hired some to try to tempt your lady's honor, whilst she, with all possible industry of apparent merit, diverted your unfortunate suspicion.
I note, I confess, all this I did, and I do glory in it. Why? Cannot a young lady for many months keep honest? No, I misthought it. My wife had wit, beauty, health, good birth, fair clothes, and a passing body. A lady of rare discourse, quick eye, sweet language, alluring behavior, and exquisite entertainment. I misthought it. I feared, I doubted, and at last I found it out. I praise my wit. I knew I was a cuckold.
An excellent wit.
True, Fawn. You shall read of some lords that have had such a wit, I can tell you. And I found it out that I was a cuckold.
Which now you have found, you will not be such an ass as Caesar, great Pompey, Lucullus, Antony, or Cato, and divers other Romans, cuckolds, who knew it, and yet were ne'er divorced upon it. Or like that smith god Vulcan, who, having taken his wife taking, yet was presently appeased, and entreated to make an armor for her a bastard of hers, Aeneas.
No, the Romans were asses, and thought that a woman might mix her thigh with a stranger wantonly, yet still love her husband matrimonially.
As indeed they say many married men lie sometimes with strange women, whom, but for the instant use, they abhor.
And as for Vulcan, 'twas humanity more than human. Such excessive goodness for my part only belongs to the gods.
As for you...
As for me, my fawn, I'm a bachelor now.
But you are a cuckold still, and one that knows himself to be a cuckold.
Right, that's it. And I knew it not, 'twere nothing. And if I had not pursued it too, it had lain in oblivion and shadowed in doubt, but now I have blazed it.
The world shall know what you are.
True, I'll pocket up no horns, but my revenge shall speak in thunder.
Indeed, I must confess I know 20 are cuckolds, honestly and decently enough. A worthy, gallant spirit, whose virtue suppresseth his mishap, is lamented, but not disesteemed by it. Yet the world shall know.
I am none of those silent coxcombs, it shall out.
And although it be no great part of injustice for him to be struck with the scabbard that has struck with the blade, for there is few of us, but shall make someone cuckold or other.
True, I had done it myself.
Yet
I hope a man of wit may prevent his own mishap, or if he can prevent it. Yet it make it known yet, and so known that the world may tremble with only thinking of it. Well, Fawn, who shall I marry now? Oh, heaven, that God made for a man no other means of procreation and maintaining the world peopled but by women. Oh, that we could increase like roses by being slipped one from another, or like flies procreate with blowing, or any other way than by a woman. By women who have no reason in their love or mercy in their hate, no rule in their pity, no pity in their revenge, no judgment to speak, and yet no patience to hold their tongues. Man's opposite, the more held down they swell. Above them naught but will, beneath them naught but hell.
Or, since that heaven hath given us no other means to allay our furious appetite, no other way of increasing our progeny, since we must entreat and beg for assuagement of our passions and entertainment of our affections, why did not heaven make us a nobler creature than women to show unto some admirable deity of an uncorruptible beauty that might be worth our knees, the expense of our heat, and the crinkling of our hands?
But that we must court, sonnet, flatter, bribe, kneel, suit so feeble and imperfect, inconstant, idle, vain, hollow bubble as woman is. Oh, my fawn.
No, my lord, look who here comes.
Enter Zoya, supported by a gentleman usher, followed by Herod and Nymphadoro, with much state, soft music playing.
Death of man, is she delivered?
Delivered, yes, my Don, delivered. Yes, Donna Zoya, the grace of society, the music of sweetly agreeing perfection, more clearly chaste than ice or frozen rain, that glory of her sex, that wonder of wit, that beauty more fresh than any cool and trembling wind, that now only wish of man is delivered, is delivered.
How?
From Don Zuccone, that dry scaliness, that sarpego, that barren drought, that shame of all humanity.
What fellow's that?
Shit. Tell me the line.
Don Zuccone, your sometime husband.
Don Zuccone, your sometime husband.
Enter Philokalia.
Alas, poor creature.
The
Ooh, I haven't given that out. Oh well, I'll say it. The princess prays your company.
I wait upon her pleasure.
And exeunt all but Hercules, Zuccone, Herod, and Nymphadoro. They all depart.
Gentlemen, why hazard you your reputation in such a shameful company with such a branded creature?
Is this actually
Miserable
her...
man, whose fortune were beyond tears to be pitied, but thou art the ridiculous author of thine own laughed-at mischief.
Without paraphrase your meaning?
why, thou woman's fool.
Good gentlemen, let one die but once.
Was not thou most cursefully made to sever thyself from such an unequalled rarity?
Is she not a strumpet? Is she not with child?
Yes, with feathers.
Why, weakness of reason, couldst not perceive all was feigned to be rid of thee?
Of me?
She with child? Untrodden snow is not so spotless.
Chaste as the first voice of a newborn infant.
No, she grew loathing of thy jealousy,
Thy most pernicious curiosity.
whose suspicions made her inimitable graces motive of thy base jealousy.
Why, beast of a man.
Wretched above expression, that snorest over a beauty which thousands desired, neglectest her bed, for whose enjoying a very saint would have sued.
Defamed her,
Suggested privily against her.
Gave foul language publicly of her.
and now, lastly, done that for her which she only prayed for and wished as wholesome air for, namely, to be rid of such an unworthy,
Senseless,
Injurious,
malicious,
suspicious,
misshaped,
ill-languaged,
unworthy,
ridiculous,
jealous,
arch coxcomb as thou art.
And exit Nymphadoro and Herod.
Oh, I am sick. My blood has the cramp. My stomach overturns. Oh, I am very sick.
Why, my sweet Don, you are no cuckold?
That's the grief on it.
That's
That I had wronged so sweet and now in my knowledge so delicate a creature. Oh, methinks I embrace her yet.
alas, my lord, you have done her no wrong in the world. You have done her a pleasure, a great pleasure. 1,000 gentlemen, nay dukes, will be proud to accept your leavings. Your leavings! Now she is courted. This heir sends her jewels, that lord proffers her jointures, the other knight proclaims challenges to maintain her the only not beautiful but very beauty of women.
But I shall never embrace her more.
Nay, that's true. That's most true. I would not afflict you. Only think how unrelentless you were to her, but supposed fault.
Oh, 'tis true, 'tis too true.
Think how you scorned her tears.
Most right.
Tears that were only shed, I would not vex you, and the very grief to see you covet your own shame.
Too true, too true.
For indeed, she is the sweetest, modest stole, the fullest of pity.
Oh, I.
The softness and very courtesy of her sex, as one that never loved any
but me.
So much that he might hope to dishonor her, nay, any so little that he might fear she disdained him. Oh, the grace made her soul as soft as spotless down upon the swan's fair breast, that dew-bright Cythera's chariot. Yet I think, I would not vex you, yet think how cruel you were to her.
As a tiger, a very tiger.
And never hope to be reconciled, never dream to be reconciled, never.
Never, alas, good Fawn, what wouldst wish me to do now?
Faith, go hang yourself, my Don, that's best, sure.
Nay, that's too good, for I'll do worse than that. I'll marry again. Where canst thou pick a morsel out for me, Fawn?
There is a modest, matron-like creature.
What years, Fawn?
Some 80, wanting 1.
A good, sober age. Is she wealthy?
Very wealthy.
Excellent.
She has 3 hairs on her scalp and 4 teeth in her head, a brow wrinkled and puckered like an old parchment half burnt. She has had eyes. No woman's jawbones are more apparent. Her sometime envious lips now sink in and give her nose and chin leave to kiss each other most moistly. As for her reverend mouth, it seldom opens, but the very breath that flies out of it infects the fowls of the air and makes them drop down dead. Her breasts hang like cobwebs. Her flesh will never make you cuckold. Her bones may.
But is she wealthy?
Very wealthy.
And will she have me, art sure?
No, sure she will not have you. Why, do you think that a waiting woman of 3 bastards, a strumpet 9 times carted, a hag whose eyes shoot poison, that has been an old witch and is now turning into a gibcat, what, will have you marry Don Zuccone, the contempt of women and the shame of men that has afflicted, contemned so choice a perfection as Donna Zoya's?
Alas, Fawn, I confess, what wouldst have me do?
Hang yourself. You shall not marry. You cannot. I'll tell you what you shall do. There is a ship of fools setting forth. If you make good means and entreat hard, you may obtain a passage. Be master's mate. I warrant you.
Fawn, thou art a scurvy, bitter knave, and dost flout dons to their faces. 'Twas thou flattered me to this, and now laughs at me, dost? Though indeed I had a certain proclivity, but thou madest me resolute. Dost grin and gurn? Oh, you comforters of life, helps in sickness, joys in death, and preservers of us, in our children, after death, women, have mercy on me.
Oh, my Don, that God made no other means of procreation but these women. I speak it not to vex you.
O Fawn, thou hast no mercy in thee. Dost thou leer on me? Well, I'll creep upon my knees to my wife. Dost laugh at me? Dost gurn at me? Dost smile? Dost leer on me? Dost thou? I am an ass, true. I am a coxcomb. Well, I am mad. Good. A mischief on your cogging tongue, your soothing throat, your oily jaws, your supple hams, your dissembling smiles, and oh, the grand devil on you all, when mischief favors our fortunes and we are miserably, though justly wretched. More pity, comfort, and more help we have in foes professed than in a flattering knave.
And exit Zuccone, and there we will pause. So we've got a scene that is constantly flinging us in different directions and flinging the audience's expectations in different directions as well, especially as we're seeing Hercules dancing from one position to another within a line, and playing these people at their own games. But is that enough? Briony.
Why is he still taking Hercules' advice? Why is he still asking him for advice? That was like the most obvious turnaround ever. And he's still asking him for advice. I do not understand.
Everybody else has left. I mean, he's the only one still in the room. I mean, nobody else is talking to him. He said, as a very thin reason. Lynn.
The real reason is because the play requires it. So it's up to the actor to try to motivate that. Because Hercules is this sort of, I'm tempted to say sort of God character, but he's not. But he's that watcher character in this court. So he's the witness to it. Also, the plot requires that he be the witness and the interpreter of all of this in the monologue that he has next. So so that's up to the actor to try to make that work.
Yeah, because he's winding everything up in one direction, and then the moment the scene changes, he winds it back in the other direction, and he uses people's words against them. So you have that speech by Zuccone, about oh, that we could increase like roses, and all that stuff about progress. And Hercules at the end just flings it back in his face, and is clearly laughing at him. And that thing where we're getting from Zuccone is just but is she wealthy? Set up once and then long speech and then, but is she wealthy? And we didn't mention this the other day, but I suppose we didn't. But there's almost a commedia dell'arte quality to all of the adjunct characters in this, who are coming in and out. That they're sort of personifications with very definite appetites, and that's all you sort of get from them. Briony.
I feel like you'd have to play that side of it up, because otherwise that whole bit of hang yourself could go down really badly with a modern audience.
Yes, but there's something so over the top about it all, as about the what's going on with Zuccone, and what's also the way Zoya comes in as well. I mean, this procession that comes in of just going, yay, I'm free, I'm free, I'm free, and delivered how from you, and the way again the dialogue is flowing, and using these short. Yet, these people interjecting in ways, and the way Herod and Nymphadoro and Hercules all work together, and it's like you're going, because Herod and Nymphadoro are just as, hypocritical here, of just going, oh, didn't you know, oh yeah, you're just an idiot, and the way they turn as a pack is really quite disturbing in ways. Eric, then Rachael.
Well, also, it's like, because at the beginning of the play, anyway, the previous time we saw Zoya before this, it was that thing of, oh, I just want to get rid of my husband, so I'm going to pretend to be pregnant, which is perfectly, okay. There's a part of me going, domestic abuse, but also, like, we're told that he neglected her and so on, and they keep going on about how she's a paragon of modesty, and you can kind of see that, like, they're all lying. Everyone is lying in this court, because Zoya lied about the pregnancy to get rid of him, and they transmitted the lie willingly and knowingly.
Yeah, it's always a bit of a problem when you've got characters who are lying all the time as to actually figure out what is going on sometimes as well. So there's an interesting series of performance choices that go on there. Rachael and then Helen.
About them turning on Zuccone, I mean, it's very Mean Girls-esque, this like sport, like the reason they turn on him is inconsequential almost. It's just that they just want him out of their little clique, where they've decided to punish him for something else that they perceive that he's done, perhaps in another scene. Just that, what do you call it? I don't know. It's a punishment that's not like that they don't like to resolve things in physical fights, because I don't think we've had yet any physical fights, but it's very emotional fights, or like things that could be emotionally abusive or emotional tactics of fighting.
Helen.
I thought it was very interesting the way Hercules was bringing out all the double standards. I mean, there's the question of, well, have you ever betrayed your wife? Well, yeah, of course. I'm a man. Sure.
Yes, because there was in the chat, I think it was Rachael, was just this going, well, Hercules is horrible, and he is being horrible with intent. Whether that, of course, justifies what he says is a matter for debate towards the end of the session. But it does have a purpose, which is to draw out the poison, I think is the term I was using yesterday. So maybe that's sort of his game.
Well, also,
Eric,
just sort of not. Just the language is kind of really well written. You have all this sort of like, yes, and the roses and the shedding of leaves and so on and so forth, and it's like, wow, but also, it's kind of like piling on the crap, like the bullshit, so to speak. Sorry for the expression.
Yeah, no, Marston luxuriates in these images. I mean, he's luxuriating in filth, and there's a certain sort of loathing of bodily things generally. I mean, there seems to creep through all of this. Suggests the guy has issues, which we might discuss further down the line. Lynn, then Rachael.
Yeah, when I was in this scene, I was sort of really I was kind of enjoying baiting Zuccone, and that passage where each of his friends has a one word insult for him, and they just pile that on, just sort of structurally. I just thought that was really, I enjoyed it. but Rachel's right, there is kind of a Mean Girls thing about it, like being mean just for the sake of being mean. And isn't it Zuccone that the courtiers say earlier in the play that they afflict him, just that's their hobby, that's just what they like to do. I mean, Hercules, I think you could argue, has an improving mission, that he kind of wants people to see themselves as they are in order to make it possible for them to do better. But I'm not sure now, listening to the discussion, that Nymphadoro and Herod have any such motivation. They just like to troll people.
Yeah. Oh, absolutely. I don't think they've got they're not on a mission at all. They're just being horrible because it's fun. And that's the point as an actor, is just going, it's really enjoyable to conjure these horrible things. That doesn't necessarily make it right. And actually, a sort of more philosophical question of, if you're pretending to be horrible, but you're still being horrible, is that okay? Does that not still make you horrible? It's this interesting question. Does the ends justify the means? Yeah. Perhaps is a way of putting it. Rachael, then Alan, then we will move on.
Yeah, I also wanted to bring up the wealthy woman. I don't remember if we got her name or not. But
I doubt she exists.
Yeah, but I mean, even if she does, whether she exists or not, the way that Hercules talks about her. I feel like the description, about all the things in her age is supposed to be a joke for the audience, but when he says, no, sure, she will not have you, I feel like that is what do you call it? It's a challenge to, because Zuccone definitely has a very sexist way of thinking, And I think that style of thinking that women don't have a choice in choosing, I mean, this is a wealthy woman, she could have whatever she wants, him thinking that if he wants a woman, that's all it takes. You know what I mean? It's like even underlying, when he thinks he can throw his wife away, he thinks he can throw her away. When he wants her again, he thinks he can have her back. And that's such a challenge to this sense of entitlement, like, that this woman that he thinks is very physically, I think, not attractive to him, because he only, how wealthy is she is what he wants to know. But what do you call it? That he's not physically attractive to. It doesn't matter whether she wants him or not. It just matters whether he wants her.
Yeah. Absolutely.
That still exists, I think.
Yeah. The Hercules is sets up this proposition of the most unappealing picture he can paint here, and of course Zuccone's response is just, is she wealthy? And then to turn it on its head again by going, well, she might not want you. Why should you? You are a pariah at the court. It's challenging all sorts of things there. I think that's an excellent point. Alan, then we'll move on.
Yeah, I must admit the image that came into my mind is that Zuccone is possibly, if one put it in an American college setting, he's possibly the slightly more academic. Whereas Herod and Nymphadoro are the sports scholarship guys who have difficulty counting in 5 if they've got a glove on.
And of course Hercules closes the scene once again with there's a ship of fools setting forth. So once again we're getting this idea that maybe there is some sort of junking process where all these horrible people get put in the sea. So we'll find out whether that's where we're going. Zuccone has left. Hercules is left alone on stage, but he's going to be joined by other people in a moment. So Hercules has another moment with the audience.
Thus few strike sail until they run on shelf. The eye sees all things but its proper self. In all things curiosity hath been vicious at least, but herein most pernicious. What madness is to search and find a wound for which there is no cure, and which unfound ne'er rankles, whose finding only wounds. But he that upon vain surmise forsakes his bed thus long, only to search his shame, gives to his wife youth, opportunity, keeps her idle full deliciousness, heats and inflames imagination, provokes her to revenge with churlish wrongs. What should he hope but this? Why should it lie in women, or even in chastity itself, since chastity is female, to avoid desires so ripened, such sweets so candied? But she that hath outborne such mass of wrongs, outdured all persecutions, all contempts, suspects, disgrace, all wants, and all the mischief, the baseness of a cankered churl could cast upon her with constant virtue, best feigned chastity, and in the end turned all his jealousies to his own scorn. That lady, I implore, it may be lawful not to praise, but even adore.
Enter Gonzago, Granuffo, with full state. Enter the cornet sounding.
Are our sports ready? Is the prince at hand?
The prince is now arrived at the court gate.
What means our daughter's breathless haste?
Here enters Dulcimel in haste.
Oh, my princely father, now or never let your princely wisdom appear.
Fear not, our daughter, if it rest within human reason, I warrant thee, no, I warrant thee, Granuffo, if it rest in man's capacity. Speak, dear daughter.
My lord, the prince.
The prince
The
of
prince.
what? What of him, my dear?
Oh, Lord, what wisdom our good parents need to shield their chickens from deceits and wiles of kite-like youth.
Her very phrase displays whose child she is.
Alas, had not your grace been provident, a very Nestor in advice and knowledge, where had you, poor Dulcimel, been now? What vainness had not I been drawn into.
'Fore God, she speaks very passionately. Alas, daughter, heaven gives every man his talent. Indeed, virtue and wisdom are not fortune's gifts. Therefore, those that fortune cannot make virtuous, she commonly makes rich. For our own part, we acknowledge heaven's goodness, and if it were possible to be as wise again as we are, we would ne'er impute it to ourselves. For as we be flesh and blood, alas, we are fools. But as we are princes, scholars, and have read Cicero de Oratore, I must confess there is another matter in it. What of the prince, dear daughter?
Father, do you see that tree that leans just on my chamber window?
What of that tree?
And somewhere around here enters Tiberio with his train.
Oh, sir, but note the policy of youth. Mark but the stratagems of working love. The prince salutes me, and thus greets my ear.
Speak softly, he is entered.
Although he knew, I yet stood wavering what to elect, because, though I affected, yet destitute of means to enjoy each other, impossibility of having might kill our hope, and with our hope desires to enjoy. Therefore, to avoid all faint excuses and vain fears, thus he devised to Dulcimel's chamber window a well-grown plane tree spreads his happy arms, by that in depth of night one may ascend, despite all father's jealousies and fears, into her bed.
Speak low. The prince both marks and listens.
You shall provide a priest, quoth he. In truth I promised, and so you well may tell him, for I temporized and only held him off.
Politely, our daughter to a hair.
With full intention to disclose it all to your preventing wisdom.
Aye, let me alone for that, but when intends he this invasion? When will this squirrel climb?
Oh, sir, and that is all. When but this night?
This night?
Very night, when the court revels had o'erwaked your spirits and made them full of sleep. Then
verbatim sat sapienti. Go, take your chamber, down upon your knees. Thank God your father is no foolish sot, but one that can foresee and see.
And exit Dulcimel.
My lord, we discharge your presence from our court.
What means the Duke?
And if tomorrow past you rest in Urbin, the privilege of an ambassador is taken from you.
Good, your grace. Some reason?
What? Twice admonished, twice again offending, and now grown blushless? You promised to get into her chamber, she to get a priest. Indeed, she wished me tell you she confessed it, and there, despite all father's jealous fears, to consummate full joys. No, sir, our daughter is our daughter, and has wit at will, to gull 1,000 easy things like you. But, sir, depart, the Parliament prepared, shall on without you. All the court this night shall triumph that our daughter has escaped, her honours blowing up. Your end you see, we speak but short but full, Socrates.
Exeunt all but Hercules and possibly confused Tiberio.
What should I think? What hope? What but imagine we speak but short but full, Sir Crichton? Are these enigmas?
Sure, sir. This lady loves you with violent passion, and this night prepares a priest with nuptial rites to entertain you in her most private chamber.
This I know with too much torture, since means are all unknown to come unto these ends. Where's this her chamber? Then what means shall without suspicion convey me to her chamber? Oh, these doubts end in despair.
Enter Gonzago hastily.
Sir, this plane tree was not planted here to get into my daughter's chamber, and so she prayed me tell you. What though the main arms spread into her window, and easy labour climbs it, sir? No, she has a voice to speak, and bid you welcome with so full breast that both your ears shall hear on't. And so she prayed me tell you, how we know brain, youth thinks that age knows that youth is vain.
And exit Gonzago.
Why, now I have it, Fawn. The way, the means, and meaning. Good Duke, and 'twere not for pity I could laugh at thee. Dulcimel, I am thine most miraculously. I will now begin to sigh, read poets, look pale, go neatly, and be most apparently in love
As for your old father?
Alas, he and all know this an old sore hath been. Faith's breach for love and kingdoms is no sin.
Exit Tiberio.
And where are we now, Silenian Mercury? And thou, quick issue of Jove's broken pate, aid and direct us. You better stars of knowledge, sweet constellations that affect pure oil, and holy vigil of the pale-cheeked muses, give me your best influence, and with able sprite we may correct and please, giving full light to every angle of this various sense, works of strong birth, and better than commence.
And exit Hercules. End of the act. Music plays. That's a fascinating little scene, isn't it? The way that Dulcimel just organises everything, and it's you're thinking the scene's gone wrong. You're thinking, oh no, he's actually banishing Tiberio. It's not going to work. And then Gonzago comes back on again and says, right, this tree, don't climb this tree. It's here. This is the one you're not supposed to climb up into a bedroom from. And that is just a really fun bit of business and just pure silly farce. I'm just loving that.
Yeah, Tiberio's like, well, I didn't even know where her chamber is. Yeah. And that right on cue, Gonzago comes in and don't do it.
And Dulcimel's, all of Dulcimel's working of her father is really nice. It's a little difficult to unpack actually at the first read, but there's a lot that's clever in there. I do like our good parents need to shield their chickens. Such a lovely little line. Alan.
Yeah, and Dulcimel obviously got her training badgering Daddy to buy her the latest My Little Pony or set of Barbie dolls. Yeah. And has got years of experience at so doing.
Well, the thing is, you figured out that you don't ask for it directly. You create a vacuum of which he will fill, and it's very clever. Rachael.
I have a feeling she's an only child or something. What do you call it? I think how he doesn't let his attendant speak. Gonzago doesn't let his attendant speak, or his attendant just knows it doesn't matter what he says, and he just nods or something like that. That she knows to let him just finish her sentences, or to lead his. He needs to come up with the idea on his own and think it's his own idea for him to agree with it, and that's what she does in this. Scene. I thought this was very fun, this one.
Briony.
It's such a really smart way of kind of empowering these women in the midst of such misogyny that's going on, and really unexpected as well, because I did not see that coming. But yeah, it's perfect.
I mean, it's a really nice extension of the stuff that Dulcimel was doing earlier, but it's just so nicely and just that surprise. You think it's going wrong, and then it doesn't, and it's really, really nice. And Tiberio continues to be just completely lost. Poor thing. Eric.
Because of course she can't tell him she likes him. That would be too much. I was gonna say that this is a very different type of clowning compared to other stuff that we've seen. I mean stuff pre-Marston. It just feels very sort of wordplay and just making fun, situational, I think is the word. I don't know. where you kind of, frame things the wrong way and then it goes right or whatever. I don't know. It's just interesting.
Well, it's also it's character based comedy. It's not that you've just got someone who turns up and says he's called a clown, therefore we know he must be funny. This is a person who is just has these party quirks that makes him funny, and the situation. Therefore, you can point Gonzago at a number of situations, and it's probably going to come out in a quite fun way. And once you start writing that, actually, it sort of writes itself. And you've got a situation there that gives whoever's playing Dulcimel so much to play as well. For all the relative lack of stage time when she's on, she's got stuff to do. Rachael.
About these women and they're being empowered in this court that is very misogynistic. The way that the women in this, compared to some of the other things that we've read or that I've read with you guys, is that a lot of times it's the parents or the father choosing the husband for the daughter, or a guy seeing her modesty and how modest she is and deciding to marry her for that. But Zoya chooses in this who she's married to. Even the older woman who Hercules briefly mentions, whether she exists or not, she's choosing her husband. And Dulcimel in this scene, she's really choosing her husband. And they're you know what I mean? Like, they're choosing their relationship status, which I don't think I've gotten to see yet with any of these plays that I've read with Beyond Shakes.
Any more before we dive into Act 5? Eric?
You kind of get the impression that, if you were doing this, in a modern setting, the equivalent would be she changed her Facebook status, relationship status, to something else, and, her dad panics or something, and then, she has to explain to him how Facebook works, and it's not what it actually means, but she explains it wrongly to him. And then, it just feels like that's the kind of situation where...
Okay, so let's go into Act 5. The interval music will fade in a minute, but it's still the act is still a playing, and we get a little bit of a dumb show to fill in some action here. So as the music continues, it will fade out in a moment. Hercules and Tiberio enter. Tiberio climbs the tree. They've got a tree, people. And is received above by Dulcimel, Philokalia, and a priest. Hercules stays beneath. Music stops.
Thou, mother of chaste dew, night's modest lamp, thou, by whose faint shine the blushing lovers join glowing cheeks and mix their trembling lips in vows well kissed, rise, as full of splendor as my breast is of joy. You genital, you fruitful, well-mixed heats, oh, bless the sheets of yonder chamber, that Ferrara's dukedom, the race of princely issue, be not cursed and ended in abhorred barrenness. At length, kill all my fears, nor let it rest once more my trembling, that my too cold son, that ever scorned of humaner loves, will still contemn the sweet of marriage. Still kill our hope in name of his dull coldness. Let it be lawful to make use, ye powers of human weakness, that pursueth still what is inhibited, and most affects that which is most difficult to obtain. So we may learn that nicer loves a shade. It follows, fled, pursued flies as afraid, and in the end, close all the various errors of passages most truly comical in moral learning, with like confidence of him that vowed good fortune of the scene, shall never make him fat, or bad make lean.
Enter Dondolo, laughing.
fool, there's nobody with thee.
Therefore do I laugh, because there's nobody with me. Would I were a fool alone? In faith, I am come to attend. Let me go. I am sent to the princess to come and attend her father to the end of Cupid's parliament.
Why, hath he sat already upon any statutes?
Sat? Aye, all's agreed in the nether house.
Why? Are they divided?
Oh, aye, in Cupid's parliament, all the young gallants are all the nether house, and all the old seniors are that can, but only kiss are of the upper house. Is the princess above?
No, sure, I think the princess is beneath man. Have they supped, fool?
Oh, yes, the confusion of tongues at the large table is broke up. For see the princess, see the presence fills. A fool, my coxcomb for a fool.
And enter Sir Amorous, Herod, Nymphadoro, Garbetza, Donetta, and it may be some of Dondolo's lines are actually Donetta. I will try and disambiguate that as I go. That's a cock-up in my case. And Poveia.
Stop, ass. What's the matter, idiot?
Oh, gallants, my fools that were appointed to wait on Don Cupid have launched out their ship to purge their stomachs on the water, and before Jupiter, I fear they will prove defective in their attempts.
Pish, fool, they'll float in with the next tide.
Aye, but when's that? Let's see mine almanac or prognostication.
What is this for the year?
In true wisdom, sir, it is. Let me see the moon, for pity 'tis in the wane. What grief is this that so great a planet should ever decline or lose splendor, force full sea at...
What's the sign now, fool?
In Capricorn, Sir Amoroso.
What strange thing does this almanac speak of, fool?
Is this your lady, Sir Amoroso?
It is. Kiss her, fool.
You may kiss her now. She is married.
So you might have done before.
In sober modesty, sir, I do not use to do it behind.
Good fool, be acquainted with this lady too. She is of a very honest nature, I assure thee.
I easily believe you, sir, for she hath a very vile face, I assure you.
But what strange things does thy almanac speak of, good fool?
That this year no child shall be begotten, but shall have a true father.
Oh, that's good news, i'faith. I'm glad I got my wife with child this year.
Why, Sir Amorous, this may be, and yet you not the true father. May it not, Herod?
But what more says it, good Fawn?
Faith, lady, very strange things. It says that some ladies of your hair shall have feeble hands, short memories, and very weak eyesight, so that they shall mistake their own page, or even brother-in-law sometimes, for their husbands.
Is that all, Fawn?
No, Sir Amorous. Here's likewise prophesied a great scarcity of gentry to ensue, so that some boors shall be dubbed Sir Amoroso. A great scarcity of lawyers is likewise this year to ensue, so that some of them shall be entreated to take fees of both sides.
And enter Don Zuccone, following Donna Zoya on his knees.
Oh, dear lady, wife, oh, do not but look on me and have some mercy.
I will have no mercy. I will not relent.
Sweet lady.
The order shall stand. I am separated, and I will be separated.
Dear, my love, wife.
Hence, fellow, I'm none of thy wife. No, I will be tyrannous, and a most deep revenger. The order shall stand. I will marry a fellow that keeps fox in his bosom, a goat under his armholes, and a polecat in his mouth, rather than re-accept thee.
Alas, by the Lord, lady, what should I say? As heaven shall bless me, what should I say?
Kneel and cry, man.
Was I not handsome, generous, honest enough from my foot to my feather, for such a fellow as thou art?
Alas, I confess.
But go thy ways, wife with whom thou wilt, for my part. Thou hast spun a fair thread. I'll kiss thee now. Who'll court thee now? Who'll have thee now?
Yet be a woman, and for God's sake help me.
Do not stand too stiffly.
And do not stand too stiffly. Do you make an ass of me? But let these rascals laugh at me. This, alas, what could I do with all? 'Twas my destiny that I should abuse you.
So it is your destiny that I should thus revenge your abuse. No, the Irishman shall hate aquavitae, the Welshman cheese, and the Dutchman salt butter, before I'll love or receive thee. Does he cry? Does the babe pule? 'Tis too late now. Thou shouldst have cried before. 'Tis too late now. Go, bury thy head in silence, and let oblivion be thy utmost hope.
And the courtiers address themselves to dancing while the Duke enters with Granuffo and takes his state.
Balance to dancing, loud music, the Duke's upon entrance.
Are the sports ready?
Ready.
'Tis enough. Of whose invention is this parliament?
Ours.
'Tis enough. This night we will exult. Oh, let this night be ever memorized with prouder triumphs. Let it be writ in lasting character that this night our great wisdom did discover so close a practice that this night, I say, our policy found out, nay, dashed the drifts of the young prince and put him to the shifts. Nay, past the shifts, for Jove, we could make a good poet. Delight us. On, we deign our princely ear. We are well pleased to grace you, then scorn fear.
Cornets playing. Enter drunkenness, sloth, pride, and plenty, and they lead Cupid to his state, who is followed by folly, war, beggary, and slaughter.
Stand, 'tis wisdom to acknowledge ignorance of what we know not. We would not now prove foolish. Expound the meaning of your show.
Triumphant Cupid, that sleeps on the soft cheek of rarest beauty, whose throne's in ladies' eyes, who forced writhed lightning from Jove's shaking hand, forced strong Alcides to resign his club, plucked Neptune's trident from his mighty arm, unhelmed Mars, he, with those trophies borne, led by sloth, pride, plenty, drunkenness, followed by folly, war, slaughter, and beggary, takes his fair throne. Sit pleased, for now we move and speak not for our glory, but for love.
And Hercules takes a bowl of wine.
A pretty figure. What, begins this session with ceremony?
With a full health to our great mistress, Venus, let every state of Cupid's parliament begin this session. Et quod bonum Faustumque sit precor.
And Hercules drinks a health.
Give it us, we'll pledge, nor shall a man that lives in charity refuse it. I will not be so old as not be graced to honour Cupid. Give it us full. When we were young, we could have trolled it off. Drink down a Dutchman.
'Tis lamentable. Pity your grace has forgot it. Drunkenness, oh, 'tis a most fluent and swelling virtue. Sure, the most just of all the virtues. 'Tis justice itself. For if it chance to oppress and take too much, it presently restores it again. It makes the king and the peasant equal. For if they are both drunk alike, they are both beasts alike. As for that most precious light of heaven, truth, if time be the father of her, I am sure drunkenness is oftentimes the mother of her, and brings her forth. Drunkenness brings all out, for it brings all the drink out of the pot, all the wit out of the pate, and all the money out of the purse.
My lord Granuffo, this Fawn is an excellent fellow.
Silence.
I warrant you for my lord here.
Since multitude of laws are signs either of much tyranny in the prince or much rebelliousness, disobedience in the subject, we rather think it fit to study how to have our old laws thoroughly executed, than to have newly statutes cumbrously invented.
Afore Jove, he speaks very well.
Oh, sir, love is very eloquent. Makes all good men orators. Himself then must needs be eloquent.
Let it therefore be the main of our assembly to survey our old laws and punish their transgressions, for that continually the complaints of lovers ascend up to our deity, that love is abused and basely bought and sold, beauties corrupted, affection feigned, and pleasure herself sophisticated, that young gallants are proud in appetite and weak in performance, that young ladies are fantastically inconstant, old ladies impudently unsatiate, wives complain of unmarried women that they steal the dues belonging to their sheets, and maids exclaim upon wives that they unjustly engross all into their own hands, as not content with their own husbands, but also purloining that which should be their comfort. Let us therefore be severe in our justice, and if any, of what degree soever, have approvedly offended, let him be instantly unpartially arrested and punished. Read our statutes.
A statute made in the 5,403 year of the easeful reign of the mighty potent Don Cupid, emperor of sighs and protestations, great king of kisses, archduke of dalliance, and sole loved of her for the maintaining and relieving of his old soldiers maimed and or dismembered in love.
Those that are lightly hurt, shame to complain. Those that are deeply struck are past recovery.
On to the next.
An act against the plurality of mistresses.
Read.
Whereas some over-amorous and unconscionable, covetous young gallants, without all grace of Venus or the fear of Cupid in their minds, have at one time engrossed the care or cure of divers mistresses with the charge of ladies into their own tenure or occupation, whereby their mistresses must of necessity be very ill and insufficiently served, and likewise many able portly gallants live unfurnished of competent entertainment to the merit of their bodies, and whereas likewise some other greedy strangers have taken in the purlieus outset land and the ancient commons of our sovereign liege Don Cupid, taking in his very highway and enclosing them and annexing them to their own lordship, to the much impoverishing and putting of divers of Cupid's true hearts and loyal subjects to base and abominable shifts. Be it therefore enacted by the sovereign authority and erected ensign of Don Cupid, with the assent of some of the lords, most of the ladies, and all the commons, that what person or persons soever shall, in the trade of honor, presume to wear at one time 2 ladies' favors, or at one time shall earnestly court 2 women in the way of marriage, or if any under the degree of a duke shall keep above 20 women of pleasure, a duke's brother 15, a lord 10, a knight or a pensioner or both 4, a gentleman 2, ipso facto shall be arrested by folly's mace and instantly committed to the ship of fools without either bail or main prize, millesimo, centesimo, quingentesimo, quadragesimo, non cupidinis, semper unius Nymphadoro, to the bar.
Shame of folly. Will Fawn now turn an informer? Does he laugh at me?
Domina Garbetza, did he not ever protest you were his most and only elected mistress?
He did.
Domini Donetta, did he not ever protest you were his only and most only elected mistress?
Oh, that is the Donetta there. He did.
Domina Poveia, did he not ever protest that you were his most and only elected mistress?
He did.
Mercy.
Our mercy is nothing, unless some lady will beg thee.
Out upon him, dissembling, perfidious
Out
liar!
upon him, dissembling, perfidious liar!
Indeed, 'tis no reasons ladies should beg liars.
Thus he that loveth many, if once known, is justly plagued to be beloved of none.
And Nymphadoro exits, having been cast out into outer darkness. There's a lot going on here in this sequence. We need an Oyes in this court. We need someone, you know, Nymphadora to the bar, Nymphadora to the bar. Do you solemnly swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, nothing but the truth, etc. That kind of stuff. It especially as it should almost get more and more frantic as it goes on. You know, we've got a lot of legalese there, which I'm sure Helen will unpack. But it feels quite you know, on point of the kind of
100% authentic. Yeah.
Good.
But yeah, we've got it's, you know, we've gone through quite a lot of material there. But I thought, you know, give it a reasonable amount of steam, as it were. Zuccone is not getting back with Zoya. That's not going to happen. And again, we have another instance of someone using their words back at them. So you said this, so I'm going to say it back at you in a very sarky manner. I like the way Gonzago, when presented by the dumb show, just basically goes, "What's going on? Please explain the plot, because I'm not going to pretend I know what's going on." It's actually the first bit of wisdom I think Gonzago said, because you think the rest of the time he would have just, oh, obviously this is all this, but he hasn't got a clue. As in fact, nobody else has. We've got the before and behind gag. That's always hilarious. We haven't really commented on the number of innuendos that have been thrown in here. Eugenital. There was a word that just sort of flew out around.
I think she's below, not above. Ha ha.
Yeah, there is a very childish language game going on throughout the whole text. Thoughts in the room about Cupid's court? Go to Lynn, then Rachael.
Oh, I mean, a couple of things, because this was kind of rather a long thing. That that soliloquy that Hercules begins with. I couldn't begin to do it justice, but thank you so much for the opportunity to read. Oh, the imagery in the beginning of that, with the moon presiding over lovemaking. Oh my gosh. I really love Marston's language at times, although it gets the syntax gets very difficult to follow there towards the end, and I really couldn't parse it on the fly. But oh my gosh. And the other thing that sort of jumped out at me is when he's Cupid he's not Cupid. He's talking about Cupid's court. He's talking about, okay, you can't have two girlfriends at the same time, no matter who you are, two legit girlfriends. And the number of basically sex professionals that you can employ varies with your rank. Does he mean that? Is that that's really quite icky?
I feel that's, again, feeling satirical. In fact, the fact that it has a certain weight to it today is quite depressing. I'll go to Helen before I go to Rachael.
Yeah, it reminded me very much of the actual law saying how many private chaplains a person could employ. Because, you know, a duke was allowed 5 or 6 or something, and then an earl could have 4. It's exactly in that mold, you know, totally familiar. It's amazing how long Cupid has reigned, isn't it? I mean, his regnal year is practically the whole of the existence of the earth.
Yeah, I think it's pretty much bang on, actually.
5,463. Yeah. Since the beginning of the world.
Right.
Ushers in a whole new field.
Well, we've had interesting questions about resolving Christianity in the classical world. This raises all sorts of interesting other questions on that one. Rachael.
Is it what you will that we had the Duke just setting laws on fire with his cigar and not really caring to do anything? This is a little bit of a similar scene, I feel, because the actual Duke here is just sitting back while Cupid puts this guy on a mock trial, in some sort of like kangaroo court. Because isn't Cupid just being played by a mummer? Is that what they're called?
Yeah, I don't think Cupid is going to have some sort of meaningful identity. It's so yeah, he's probably just some performer on that level. Yeah, presumably queued up by Hercules. Lalitte.
Yes, I was going to say Cupid seems very different in this play to other Cupids. I mean, just watching the Marlowe plays where Cupid is really quite vicious and just causes a lot of trouble. And this seems to be the first time that Cupid's being brought in to kind of just actually solve a lot of problems in a surprisingly even-handed way in terms of gender, which is quite unusual.
Yeah, we've had a lot of Cupids, and there's a real dynamic shift across depictions. There's always a bit of mischief to Cupid, but he's sat in judgment before. In a lily off the top. Was it a lily or was it something else? I forget.
In Galatea?
No, it was one of the others.
But
yeah,
to Paris.
No. Anyway, it'll come to me. Eric, were you waving? No.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that, like, when the line Nymphadoro to the bar, obviously it's like the lawyer, to the bar isn't like, barrister type thing, but I misread that as, hey, to the bar, let's go drinks. Yeah, but obviously, yeah. I don't know, that was just
No, this has been run like a parliament.
Yeah.
So it's the bar of the house.
Yeah.
If you ever see it on television, it's the point where the MP bows to the speaker. That's the bar.
Yeah, I just mistook it for, like, which is actually a really fun interpretation as well.
And says something more about you than the play. Sorry. That came out wrong.
Briony. This is revenge for the Muppet incident, isn't it? Going to Briony.
I just found Nymphadoro's last line particularly interesting. Because there's three words in there that really say the most out of the whole sentence. That if once known, he's remorseless earlier on when he's talking about how he sees all these women at once, and demonstrating it in front of his friends like it's a little show for them. And he sort of, because he says justly plagued to be beloved of none, but only the fact that he's found out. It's not the actual. The cheating, it's none of that. It's just the fact that he's been found out that he thinks is bad.
Yes, and yes, with the play where Cupid is in charge is Love's Metamorphosis. Took me a while. I knew it was there somewhere. As the deity everyone goes to, which is sort of the role he's playing here to a degree. Though of course, again, he's sort of simple. I was going to say something before I go to somewhere else. Zuccone is basically cast out in this question. Is there this question of the ship of fools, which keeps coming up? Of is anyone actually going there? Is that actually happening? They've launched a ship. To purge their stomachs in the water. Is that really happening? Are the people who are cast out basically ending up on a boat, never to be seen again? Is in my production at the moment in my head. Big boat. Rachael.
Helen said this the other day about the courtiers and their right to take from the feast or the buffet table. I'm not sure, what their feasting looked like back then, and how there was such anarchy that the people of lower rank were getting food before people of higher rank. And, that Cupid is just some actor in a play, some just random guy, and he's getting a courtier tossed out of court. I think there's some anarchy in this. There's a lot of anarchy in this moment, and a lot of usurping things by, regular people with power. And I also think that this is supposed to be something that looks like Parliament, going over the head of the king. I feel like there's some, political implications that Marston is trying to make in this scene through this ridiculous satire, maybe.
Mm. And the fact that Cupid is passing on to Hercules, because presumably Hercules has stage managed all of this, but also, more importantly, that all of these really long speeches are things that no one has to learn. Because it is, read our statutes. Thank you very much. Big piece of paper. Make sure that you're nice to the props people. Right, we're going to move on. There's another statute to come. So Nymphadoro has exited. Hercules has another bit of paper to read. I'm sure it'll be nice to somebody.
An act against counterfeiting of Cupid's coin and abusing his subjects with false money. To the bar, Sir Amorous, in most lamentable form, complaineth to your blind selfitude that your distressed orators, the women of the world, that in respect that many spendthrifts who, having exhausted and wasted their subjects, and in stranger parts, have with empty shows treasonably purchased ladies' affections, without being of ability to pay them for it with current money, and therefore have deceitfully sought to satisfy them with counterfeit metal, to the great displeasure and no small loss of your humblest subjects, may it therefore, with your pitiful assent, be enacted, that what lord, knight, or gentleman soever, knowing himself insufficient, bankrupt, exhausted, and wasted, shall traitorously dare to entertain any lady as wife or mistress, ipso facto to be severed from all commencement with women, his wife or mistress in that state to be forgiven with a pardon, of course, and himself instantly to be pressed to sail in a ship of fools without either bail or main prize. Sir Amorous is arrested.
A judgment of the court!
I take my oath upon thy brother's body, 'tis none of thine.
By the heart of dissemblance, this Fawn has wrought with us as strange tailors work in corporate cities where they are not free. All inward, he lurked in the bosom of us, and yet we knew not his profession. Sir, let me have counsel.
'Tis in great Cupid's case, you may have no counsel.
Death of justice! Are we in Normandy? What is my lady's doom then?
Acquitted by the express parole of the statute, hence, and in thy ignorance be quietly happy. Away with him, on.
An act against forgers of love letters, false braggarts of ladies' favors, and vain boasters of counterfeit tokens.
'Tis I confess, guilty.
I will be most humane and right courteously languaged in thy correction, and only say thy vice from apparent here hath made thee an apparent beggar, and now a false knave hath made thee a true fool. Folly to the ship with him, and twice a day let him be ducked at the mainyard.
Proceed.
An act against slanderers of Cupid's liege ladies' names and the lewd defamers of their honors.
'Tis I weep and cry out. I have been a most contumelious offender. My only cry is miserere.
If your relenting lady will have pity on you, the fault against our deity be pardoned.
Madam, if ever I found favor in your eyes, if ever you have thought me a reasonable, handsome fellow, as I am sure before I had a beard you might, oh, be merciful.
Well, upon your apparent repentance, that all modest spectators may witness I have for a short time only thus feignedly hated you, that you might ever after truly love me. Upon these cautions I re-accept you. First, you shall vow.
I do vow, as heaven bless me. I will do
What?
whatsoever it be. Say on, I beseech you.
You shall vow.
Yes.
That you shall never.
Never.
Feign love to my waiting woman or chambermaid.
No.
Never promise them such a farm to their marriage.
No.
If she'll discover but whom I affect.
Never.
Or if they know none, that they'll take but take a false oath I do, only to be rid of me.
I swear I will not only not counterfeitly love your women, but I will truly hate them, and it be possible so far from maintaining them that I will beggar them. I will never pick their trunks for letters, search their pockets, ruffle their bosoms, or tear their foul smocks. Never, never.
That I chance to have humour to be in a mask, you shall not go jealous.
Never.
Or grudge at the expense.
Never. I will eat mine own arms first.
That you shall not search if my chamber door hinges be oiled to avoid creaking.
As I am a sensible creature.
Nor ever suspect the reason why my bedchamber floor is double matted.
Not as I have blood in me.
You shall vow to wear clean linen and feed wholesomely.
Aye, and highly. I will take no more tobacco, or come to your sheets drunk, or get wenches. I will ever feed on fried frogs, broiled snails, and boiled lambstones. I will adore thee more than a mortal, observe and serve you as more than a mistress, do all duties of a husband, all offices of a man, all services of thy creature, and ever live in thy pleasure or die in thy service.
Then here my quarrel ends. Thus cease all strife.
Until they lose, men know not what's a wife. We slight and dully view the lamp of heaven, because we daily see it, which but bereaved, and held one little week from darkened eyes, with greedy wonder we should all admire. Opinion of command puts out love's fire.
An act against mummers, false seemers that abuse ladies with counterfeit faces, courting only by signs and seeming wise only by silence.
The penalty?
To be urged to speak, and then, if inward ability answer not outward seeming, to be committed instantly to the ship of fools during great Cupid's pleasure. My lord Granuffo, to the bar, speak, speak. Is not this law just?
Just? Sure. For in good truth or in good sooth, when wise men speak, they still must open their mouth.
The brazen head has spoken.
Thou art arrested.
Me?
And judged away.
And exit Granuffo.
Thus silence, with grave looks and hums and haws, makes many worshipped when if tried their doors. That's the morality or l'envoi of it. L'envoi of it, on.
An act against privy conspiracies, by which, if any with ambition's wisdom shall hope and strive to outstrip love, to cross his words, to make frustrate his sweet pleasure, if such a presumptuous wisdom fall to nothing and die in laughter, the wizard so transgressing is ipso facto adjudged to offend in most deep treason, to forfeit all his wit at the end, to forfeit all his wit at the will of the Lord, and be instantly committed to the ship of fools forever.
Ay, marry, sir. Oh, might Oedipus riddle me out such a fellow. Of all creatures breathing, I do hate those things that struggle to seem wise, and yet are indeed very fools. I remember when I was a young man, in my father's days, there were 4 gallant spirits for resolution, as proper for body, as witty in discourse, as anywhere in Europe. Nay, Europe had not such. I was one of them. We 4 did all love one lady, a modest, chaste virgin she was. We all enjoyed her, I well remember, and so enjoyed her that, despite the strictest guard was set upon her, we had her at our pleasure. I speak it for her honour and my credit. Where shall you find such witty fellows nowadays? Alas, how easy it is in these weaker times to cross love tricks. Ha ha ha! Alas, I smile to think I must confess with some glory to mine own wisdom, to think how I found out and crossed and curbed and jerked and firked and in the end made desperate Tiberio's hope. Alas, good silly youth that dares to cope with age and such a beard, I speak it without glory.
But what might your well-known wisdom think if such a one, as being most severe, a most protested opposite to the match of two young lovers, who having barred them speech, all interviews, all messages, all means, to plot their wished ends, even he himself was, by their cunning, made the go-between and the only messenger, the token carrier, told them the times when they might fitly meet, nay, showed them the way to one another's bed.
May one have the sight of such a fellow for nothing? Doth there breathe such an egregious ass? Is there such a foolish animal in rerum natura? How is it possible such simplicity can exist? Let us not lose our laughing at him, for God's sake. Let folly's sceptre light upon him, and to the ship of fools with him instantly.
Of all these follies I arrest your grace.
Me? Ha! Me? Varlet? Me? Fool? Ha! To the jail with him. What? Varlet calls me an ass? Me?
What? Grave Urban's Duke? Dares folly's sceptre touch that his prudent shoulders? Is he a coxcomb? No, my lord is wise, for we all know that Urban's Duke has eyes.
God have mercy, Fawn. Hold fast, varlet. Hold thee, good Fawn, railing reprobate.
Indeed, I must confess your grace did tell, and first did intimate your daughter's love to otherwise most cold Tiberio. After conveyed her private favor to him, a curious scarf, wherein her needle wrought her private love to him.
What? I do this? Ha!
And last, by her persuasion, showed the youth the very way and best elected time to come unto her chamber.
Thus did I, sir.
Thus did you, sir, but I must confess you meant not to do this, but were rankly gulled, made a plain natural. This sure, sir, you did, and in assurance Prince Tiberio, renowned witted Dulcimel, appear. The acts of constant honor cannot fear.
Exit Hercules as Tiberio and Dulcimel enter above. They're discovered hand in hand.
Royally wise and wisely royal father.
That's sententious now. Figure called in art Ironia.
I humbly thank your worthy piety that through your only means I have obtained so fit, so loving, and desired a husband.
Death a discretion. If I should prove a fool now, am not I an ass, think you? Ha! I will have them both bound together and sent to the Duke of Ferrara presently.
Sure, good father. We are both bound together as fast as the priest can make us already. I thank you for it, kind father. I thank you only for it.
And Hercules enters in his own shape. He takes off the glasses and suddenly he's someone completely different.
And as for sending them to the Duke of Ferrara, see, my good lord, Ferrara's o'erjoyed prince meets thee in fullest wish.
By the Lord, I am ashamed of myself, that's the plain troth. But I know now wherefore this parliament was. What a slumber have I been in!
Never grieve nor wonder, all things sweetly fit.
There is no folly to protested wit.
What still in wondering ignorance doth rest, in private conference your dear-loved breast shall fully take. But now we change our face. And thus, in bold yet modest phrase, we end. We, whose Thalia with swiftest hand hath penned this lighter subject, and hath boldly torn fresh bays from Daphne's arm, doth only scorn malicious censure of some envious few, who think they lose if others have their due. But let such adders hiss. No, all the sting, all the vain foam of all the snakes that ring Minerva's glassful shield shall never taint, poison, or pierce. Firm art disdains to faint, but yet of you that with impartial faces, with no prepared malice, but with graces of sober knowledge, have surveyed the frame of this slight scene. If you shall judge his flame distemperately weak, as faulty much in style and plot in spirit, lo, if such he deigns in self-accusing phrase to crave not praise, but pardon, which he hopes to have, since he protests he ever hath aspired to be beloved rather than admired.
And thus ends the play. We don't know technically who speaks the epilogue, but now we change our face seems to indicate that. And now I'm just going to step forward and I'm just going to deliver the epilogue. Other interpretations are, of course, available. So, the stage slowly empties as various people are cast into the Ship of Fools. And Gonzago's sitting there going, "Who's next? Who's 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 next?" Does not seem to, and say, the irony that's being played there. It takes him a long time to twig. Rachael, then Briony.
I mean, Hercules has been here playing the fool the whole time, but without even fighting, he's dissembled a whole court. He's and who's left to serve under this, to serve under Gonzago, this duke, and now his son and has married his daughter-in-law, and he's kind of conquered a kingdom without having to lift a finger, really. Interesting.
And it's interesting how that ending lands, of course, where that leaves Gonzago. I mean, we don't actually know how literal again this Ship of Fools is. Have they just been thrown into another room and just socially shamed, or are they literally on a boat? Which is my preferred answer, but I suspect that's not actually the way it goes. Briony.
It's just this delicious way the playwright has hung everybody with their own rope. It's fantastic, and it was so much fun to read Gonzago at the end there, where he's just because I could tell, and that's why I was giving it extra pompousness, because I knew that he was about to get it. So it was lots of fun.
Committed to the Ship of Fool forever, is he? And then we get this sort of reconciliation scene with Zoya and Zuccone, and I put in the chat that it's got a real sub-dom vibe to it. You get the impression that they're possibly both getting off on that in interesting ways, and that's actually quite an interesting resolution. Rather than everybody just simply being split and sent their separate ways. There's something slightly different going on there. Thoughts from the room on that and other elements of this closing of the scene. I'll go back to Briony.
Yes, there was a bit of discussion in the chat about this weird revelation that Gonzago makes about this supposedly chaste, modest woman that him and three of his mates have all had. I think it is meant to say that she is chaste, and I think that's his whole point, is that he's just so damn clever that, and obviously his friends as well, they're just all so clever that this really chaste woman, who obviously wasn't at all,
Yeah, I don't quite even know why that comes. I'm not really sure what's going on there, actually. He just seems to go off on a tangent, but I'm sure it can't be that. I'm just haven't quite passed it yet. Rachael, then Eric.
I don't... the way I interpreted that was she was a virgin, and then him and 3 or 4, I don't know how many, it said, him and 3 of his friends, they, visited her and, got around the guards that were outside her chamber. And they had sex.
Yes, we were so witty that we managed to do this, and for all these people who aren't as witty as I, kind of thing. Yeah, Rachael, continue. You.
No, I was gonna say, I don't know if that, what that is supposed to imply, or if it's just because that's so weird. I don't know if it's supposed to be like a underside to like Gonzago, or like a darker side to him that is just not really touched upon because it's a comedy, or if this was like just something that was consensual but they hid it for her reputation, and if he calls her like a chaste woman just because I don't know, he's the Duke and he decides who's in favor and who's not in favor, and anybody who questions her chastity will have a problem with him.
I think it was something to do with their wit and gaining entrance, and and yet they managed to retain her reputation. I think that might be what they're talking about there. So the contradiction is the difference between public and private. And of course, Gonzago's suddenly coming out with this after quite a few other people have been, openly shamed for similar things. It's like he's just not paying attention, is he? He's trying to come up with an example of his own wit, and he's coming up with that to sort of prevent himself going on the ship of fools. Briony, then I'll go to Eric.
I just think it is just to really, really super underline how stupid this man really is. That even after what he's just seen, he's going to use this as an example of how clever he is.
Eric.
See, I don't know. There's a part of me going, like, is this some sort of metaphor for, like, the Virgin Mary? And sort of, like, obviously they wouldn't have gained entry because she wouldn't be guarded. But then another part of me is like, did they just pay for sex, and is he omitting that? Because he kind of goes, I do hate those things that struggle to seem wise and yet are indeed very fools, which is basically a description of himself. No, it's just sort of, he seems to be going, in my old day, when I was young, we did this. But like, sort of, I don't know, it just seems a small anecdote about him.
And I love the fact that Gonzago claims at the end that he knows what's going on. But Hercules' last line is basically, I'll explain everything in a minute, in private. And yeah, you get the impression that Gonzago doesn't necessarily still have a clue where and why and how and all the rest of it. Other thoughts from the room about what's going on here? Lalitte.
Is it unusual that it's only the guys who end up in the Ship of Fools and who are punished for sort of sexual indiscretion? It's like that not a single woman is sent off in the Ship of Fools. They all seem to have been seen as either wronged or having, resisted wrong. But it seems to be quite unusual that none of, that the play very squarely kind of blames the men.
I'm not sure what the final outcome for Zoya is there, because whether they both get shipped to the Ship of Fools as well or not. I could be wrong. I could be wrong on that. I'm not sure whether they just move on and they're just there, or did they get pardoned? They got pardoned. Yeah, they did. Sorry, I got lost a bit there. But yes, no, I don't know whether it's unusual, because this is such, in many ways, an unusual play in what it's doing. But I think it reinforces, I think, Rachel's point from earlier that that what's going on with these characters seem to be doing that, and the other threads that people have been saying. I could have been wrong about who said it earlier. Lynn.
Well, Zoya didn't actually do anything wrong. She didn't cheat on her husband.
She did lie. She did lie. But
it's not cool. But according to the script that Hercules is reading, that's not a problem. And about another couple, he says the woman will have a pardon because she was basically kind of backed into a corner on that. So yeah, I think that Lalitte's making a really great point that this play, I mean, that sort of implies that men have the agency, so men have the responsibility. But the play undercuts that by showing Dulcimel with quite a bit of agency. So yeah, this time around, we are not going to shame the women for being promiscuous, or for anything else. We're going to try to get the men to take a good, clear look at themselves.
Yeah, because the women come on and basically they're the ones who come on and cast out Nymphadoro. And you imagine that if they had the budget, there would be even more women coming on there and hurling things at him or something. Any other thoughts about the this final scene, as it were? Cupid, I don't know whether Cupid gets, but there is a slight sense I have of because the stage has been cleared almost of everybody. Even Dulcimel and Tiberio are above, mid-coitus or whatever that they've just left each other from. They're only holding hands. Who knows what the image is being presented there. And we don't get a resolution as to what it, how literal is this mask about, are these people actually cast out of the court? Or have they just been there's an interesting, where are we now? And where is Gonzago in his own court, having been so publicly... he's not been publicly shamed, actually. They've cleared the room. So in that sense, they've done him a service of everybody else getting cast out first. These are not inherently massive problems for a production. I'm just flagging them as there's an interesting question about where we're left here. Okay. We are now going to go into final thoughts, and because it's the end of the play, we can throw in sort of general thoughts about the play overall, as well as what we've done this session, and we can be a bit more expansive and dance around a bit. We've got the time. So there's been a certain amount of questions across the week about how is this play going to land based on how's it going to end? Because there's an awful lot of people demonstrating misogyny throughout this play, and we raise that question of is its satire, is that enough for that level of onslaught that we actually have, and how does this ending land? It feels that the ending has actually landed very well, generally, and that Marston's managed to turn this ship around. But now thinking back, for those who've been here for most of us have been here for most of it, how are we feeling about that? So as we go into our final thoughts, especially about performing this today as well. I mean, it does have a modern performance history. It's not completely unperformed, so it has obviously on some level succeeded. But final thoughts on the room. Anyone want to dive in first, or shall I just start picking? I'll go to Lynn.
Yeah, I guess I'm sort of evolving into a Marston groupie. So it's turning into the three M's for me. Marston, Marlowe, and Middleton are like are I'm
you can sort of go
yeah.
You're loving
so
it.
The ending does, I think, for me personally, redeem it quite a bit. So I think if you were going to produce this, you're going to put this on stage, that you need to keep that in mind. I mean, one of the things I learned studying dramaturgy is the most, ask yourself and ask your director, how do you want the audience to feel when they leave the theater? That's really important. The last 5 minutes of your movie are the most important. So that's the way things end. Really has a lot more weight than the middle. So I think that the sort of redemptive sense that you get from this ending, I think it's really effective. I think it works really well. So your challenge would be to kind of keep the rest of it buoyed above that cynicism that it seems to sometimes want to seek into. The tone you're looking for is more, for those of you who are a big nerd like me, more Night of the Burning Pestle than, say, Epicene or Volpone. So it can be kind of a sweet-tempered satire. That I am telling you this because we can do better, and but we can't do better until we see ourselves clearly. So yeah, I think it's doable. I think it has great potential.
Alan, any final thoughts?
I'm still not sure it grabbed me as a piece overall. There's some very good set pieces, there's some lovely language, but overall, I'm not really too sure about it. I could see one way that you could do it is if you updated it, looked at contemporary politics. I can visualize certain characters who would fit quite well into some of the roles.
Helen, any final thoughts? End of the week, you go wild.
Yeah, I mean, I would go entirely with what Lynn says as far as dramaturgy is concerned. I'm obviously more concerned with the politics of it. I can see it as a particularly pointed and vicious satire of James I and the English court. There is so much here that really, really fits. What my discovery today was that I think if King James had seen it, he would instantly identify with Hercules, the man at the center of everything, the man who was wise, who saw everything, who brought people to a sense of where they were and who they were. But the vagaries of his speech, the drinking, the chaos of the court, I believe it is satirical, but that's quite irrelevant to our future purposes.
But hey, we can throw it in. It's interesting, just following Lynn's question of tone, is that that there are tonal shifts as well in this. That there's constant surprises. I think the question is that question of making sure you don't lose the audience before the interval, because it is. It's almost like you don't want an interval because you don't want anyone to have a chance of leaving. Because even though we know where it's going, part of the game is also to send the audience down, potentially wrong paths as well. And there's all sorts of, there's interesting questions about Hercules' motives at the beginning, because it doesn't sound like at the beginning. It sounds like at the beginning that he genuinely is planning on the marriage himself, and which it gets dropped very, very quickly. But there's something not great about that as a plan, and that sort of initial motivation, so it gives us sort of pause for thought in terms of the delivering the text today, that we might need to just sort of massage how that works. But we'd have lots of options as well in terms of staging. Lalitte, any final thoughts?
Yeah, I'm just I've obviously only sort of been familiar with the last section, although I did read the rest of it. I'm wondering if it's the kind of text that could lend itself to us, an all-female cast doing it. If you want to distance the misogyny and put it in quotation marks and kind of turn it inside out, and you can do a gender reverse casting or an all-female cast, and that can be a way to sort of stop the play falling into its own trap.
Yes, because it's the Dennis Potter trap, isn't it? Of you understand perfectly well that what you're criticising, but you end up reinforcing it at the same time. And that is always the problem of this kind of text, is that by demonstrating misogyny, you're also reinforcing it, as well as and being just a bit triggering at times, which is a bit of a problem. But then, how do you balance that? What can you do, even if the play's heart is in the right place? Which I'm not 100% certain at times. Marston seems to be enjoying himself far too much sometimes. Just going, what's the most horrible thing I can say right now?
I mean, I suppose the women characters are kind of strong enough to sort of counteract quite a lot of the male vicious idiots, because both Dulcimel, sorry, it's not Dulcimel.
Dulcimel.
Dulcimel and the wife, Zoya, is it? I mean, they both kind of come out tops morally and in love. So I suppose that's something in terms of the gender balance.
Yeah, and also some of the excesses would need to be trimmed away just in terms of length. There's an awful lot of long speeches that are quite listy, and it's going, one or two of those are fine, but there does come a point of going, maybe just for time and willpower, some of them need to possibly be trimmed. Rachael, any final thoughts?
I found this. I really liked the first day, and in the middle of this, I kind of felt a little lost on it. Like there was something in it that had just slowed down. But I think I really liked today too. And I think knowing the whole full story now and how to go through it, or how you would approach certain things, because this ending informs so much of who Hercules was. And he was so hard to pin down during this whole play that a lot of the stuff that I wasn't picking up in the middle might make more sense on a second look. But yeah, I agree with Lynn. I agree with Lynn on the yeah. I like Marston in the way that he has these huge character driven things that are very tongue-in-cheek. The thing that Lalitte just said about the gender swapped casting, I think the misogyny would be saying something different. It would be more of that internalized misogyny, which I think women do have approach at some point in their lives, to undo that, to become empowered. They discourse with that internalized misogyny, and I do think there is some ways that they act like mean girls, the guys in this, that you could be saying something. I think it would be interesting to see what that was like in that direction of a production. But I think this is a great play that you could pull out and put into a season and get a lot of laughs from an audience if you needed a comedy.
Yeah, I mean the thing is, what Marston's doing here is, he may be being critical of a patriarchal society, but he's only really giving people hints of how to manage it. They're not talking about changing anything. Which is sort of the fundamental problem with many of these plays. The Dulcimel is clever and intelligent and has assessed the situation perfectly, but she's just going to work the system, and of course the system gets you in the end because the system is corrupt. Eric, final thoughts?
I was going to say, but then if these plays actually tried to change anything, then it would be kind of. We'd end up in the situation that Marston describes in the prologue, where they get hanged or tortured or something like that. Possibly. I mean, if the king or someone else doesn't like it, someone else in a high place, they could easily make things go away, especially playwrights. I'm guessing.
If Gonzago was vicious as well as stupid, this would be a tragedy.
Yeah. I don't know. It's an interesting play. I think I was the opposite of Rachael, as in I was a bit lost at the first on the first day, and then in the middle I was like, oh, I see what you're doing. I mean, sort of. Okay, obviously with Marston, I was like, yeah, this is totally slow burn, so I'm probably gonna get it tomorrow, and I don't know. It just felt kind of weird, and I'm not entirely sure about what you would do about the misogyny, sexism, and all that stuff. It's sort of like, with the Turkish place where you've got all the racism. Do you cut it out? Do you enforce it, or what? It kind of, because obviously those were played for action / comedy / I don't know, tragedy. Yeah.
Yeah, and these are all questions that we're only really at the lower slopes of actually trying to address as we work towards a performance strategy. So the more thoughts we have, and that includes from our audience any performance strategies or options for the future. Briony, final thoughts.
Well, I fall for it every time, every single time with Marston, but it's such a difficult question of how you would present this, because I was taken in by all of the misogyny, and even though I know that he always finds a way to kind of resolve it, balance it out a little bit, I still was like, there's no way he can at this point. There's no way. And he kind of did, to my satisfaction anyway. But yeah, but if you did anything to kind of soften that, then it takes away, it detracts from the impact of the ending, which I love. I love the fact that he fools me every time. I love the fact that it didn't dawn on me until I was reading Gonzago and like, oh, I see where this is going now. But I really enjoy that, the surprise that you get with him. It's never expected. I can never see it coming personally. But I agree and appreciate what people have said about the way he does leave a lot of it to the audience. Like we don't know how official this court is at the end. We don't know what real consequences there are, but he's almost just laid it all bare for everybody to look and judge, and like you say, kind of shown people what is in front of their faces. So I like the way he does that a lot.
Yeah, I mean it's this public shaming. It's like someone's just dumped your deleted tweets on the internet and emails, and just the whole court has all these awkward transactions presented to everyone, and maybe it's just simply they do the shaming and actually see if the court changes, rather than they're actually literally banished into a ship of fools, which is probably unlikely. Any other counterpoint thoughts to those final thoughts? We have a few minutes in lieu. Eric?
Well, it's more a question rather than a thought. I mean, like a complete thought. It's just like, because we've been discussing the misogyny, all that stuff. I'm just wondering if, because we discussed cross-gender casting and all-female casts as well, which I totally support the idea, but also like there's a part of me going, would that solve the problem, or would it just change it to a different problem?
I mean, the general principle of our structure, when we actually produce things, is to expand on casting in terms of making sure that we have a reasonably balanced cast in terms of male and female roles. Anyway, so some of the parts would almost certainly be played by women. The question is whether there's an adjustment to the text or how that works. That might have a change there on some level. On just that pragmatic notion of having hopefully some form of ensemble that is vaguely representative. But it's a really good question, and there are other ways of balancing the room and seeing how it goes. It's a similar question with other plays that are even darker, of actually going, well, if this is what it's about, if you change it to try and make it nicer, well, making it nicer is rather not the point. And you're sort of getting the point by missing the point, if that is the best way of putting it. Briony?
What you were saying earlier about how he deals a lot with this kind of problematic material like the misogyny, but in a way that doesn't challenge it, and I do agree with that, but could you also almost argue that change begins with just accepting and realizing that the problem is there in the first place?
Oh, absolutely. And you know, for his time, he's not necessarily doing too badly. And it's interesting contrasting him with Lily, writing 10, 15 years earlier for A Boy's Company, that is setting up questions about gender and politics and similar things. But whereas Marston's left us quite satisfied with this ending on some level, whereas Lily seems to deliberately leave us in this point of feeling very jarred, of not quite sure if we're satisfied with the ending that we've been given, and it's a very deliberate policy. But yeah, there's fascinating similarities and total differences between the two playwrights that I'm just wondering if it's just simply something structural about a children's company that brings that out in the play, that these kind of questions, rather than plays for the adult playhouse companies that are much more tell the story, get on with the story, not necessarily challenging in the same way. And I don't know if that's just a gross exaggeration. I don't know. I'm now thinking aloud. Rachael.
This is just another side of it, or another view of that, perhaps, that that the women in this, they are conforming to something that they have to do and some standards that they have to meet. And people now have to meet certain standards, you know what I mean? Like that, like womanhood is their otherness in this, and they have to meet that standard of virtue. There so many workplaces, if women aren't wearing makeup, it's considered unprofessional. And that they go to that standard and that they meet that standard. I don't really know what I'm trying to say here, but that, like, I don't know. It's part of what they have to meet, that these women are just fitting into what they have to for that period of time. And I mean, there's more extreme ways than makeup, to fit into like a masculine conformity, or like women in the military, they have to not dress in the way that men dress, but in the way that a higher ranked, probably male person has dictated that they should dress to conform to a military lifestyle or a military environment or something like that. I don't know what the conclusion of what I'm trying to say is, but yeah.
We have the time to just let our thoughts flow. That is cool. Briony, I think you're probably our final thought. Any additional response?
Yeah, I was just thinking about how evenly mixed would the audience have been for this, because he's saying a lot of kind of what he does in terms of misogyny and empowering these women to, if nothing else, to at least play the system, which is better than they get in other works. And I'm just wondering how that would have been received by his audience, how many of them would have been women, or whether it's a strange kind of thought.
Would a lot of the audience been law students? Have I got this right? That quite a lot of the boy players were performing in the Inns of Court. So in that a lot of young men.
Yeah, I believe I'm about to be diving into some proper research on this shortly, but I believe a lot of them would have been. But also there's plenty of evidence that women went to plays as well, of their own bat, and we do have knowledge of that. So it's always very difficult to estimate what the actual audience for any of these things are. I think that seemed to be the general shape, is that it's that kind of younger male audience, but for this particular venue. But I could be wrong on that front, and it's also very, very difficult to tell. But it's a really good question. Helen?
Yeah, I always think that estimates of the number of women at early modern plays is over. I think people are overestimating it, because when you get a woman mentioned as going to a play, it's something particular, it seems to me. And that I don't think it was a respectable thing to do.
but we may have more data on that anon. Eric, very briefly, because I need to close the session.
My sort of final thought was basically because Marston then goes on to write sort of, the stuff that we've seen, Malcontent and so on. And I was just wondering, like, sort of, because I remember the Marlowe Society Marlowe Society? Anyway, whatever. Not the Marlowe Society, someone else. The Malone Society, thank you, was talking about how Ben Jonson's company plays were performed by boy players and adults, but then they basically grew into the roles. So I was thinking that maybe some of these are sort of building into the roles that come afterwards. So maybe that's the thing about the female parts, where like they're not very big parts, but they're sort of enough to make an impact, but not like Mackerel or something. And I know that was just sort of a random thought that I had.
And on that random thought, we will close the session. Lots to mull on for the Fawn. Many people fawning over it. Some people less sure. Until next time, thank you very much, all the wonderful readers, and goodbye. Insert sexual innuendo here.